back, everybody. We're going to continue our conversation with a wonderful actress who is just as pleasant of a person as the first big movie that she was in. Welcome to the show, Meredith Thomas.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And I find it interesting, how kind of life is like and how the cycles are early on in your career, at the beginning of your career, when you were on Pleasantville, and that's the movie that for everybody.
Yeah.
When you were on it, it deals with kind of this, slower pace, more idyllic, style of life. And as I look at your career, fast forward a few years and getting to a turning point of your career and a lot of what you have been doing lately, it's Lifetime movies. And it deals again with that same kind of same simpler, more nicer pace of life. Just interesting how life kind of works out.
Yeah, well, and then kind of in the realm of art imitating life too, suddenly we're in with Pleasantville, which I thought was pretty ahead of his time. And it was about simpler life in the 50s, but then in some ways it was kind of a social commentary on where we had gone, how we'd move forward, and maybe where we still needed to move forward in regards to civil rights and race relations. So it's interesting to look back and see that I was really, it was a dream working on that. It was Gary Ross's directing debut. He had written at that point, but that was his first big directing thing. So
yeah. Well, it's a great introduction to kind of your Hollywood path. I
Hollywood dream, yes.
And again, another kind of the life element of where you started out. You were born in Alaska, and you started out in a very small town or village, really. And for a first kind of big Hollywood project to be set in a small town in a more kind of a different time from the reality of where we are, it's just interesting. I find those things fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I was the Pleasantville deals with, the change, the metaphor of going from black and white to color and expanding people's worlds. And then I was this little, my first 7 years, I was this little blonde girl in a village of Inuit people. So it was definitely an interesting thing. Then I'm in this huge city of Los Angeles suddenly, like as a teenager, and then I'm driving to this little idyllic town that they built in the Santa Monica Mountains. And so it was I would drive over the hills to Malibu, and then suddenly I'm transported to this little teeny town where really I'm living off of Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. So it just the whole experience of being an actor and what you live through on any given day in your imagination is crazy. And I just wrapped a new Lifetime film, and I was like, well, no pun intended, like I live a lifetime in a day, from the time that I wake up early in the morning and then drive through LA right now in the midst of COVID, and then drive to a set and this new normal. And then the emotions of a character that prayerfully I'll never experience some of the things that these characters go through, but I go through them in my body and in my mind and in a given day. And then I go home and go back to whatever this real life is right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, you're talking about Lifetime movies and more stereotypically speaking, but I grew up on old old Hollywood musicals. That's kind of was my introduction to Hollywood. So for me, Singing in the Rain and all of the Fred Astaire. So I am used to that beautiful kind of softer and brighter energy. And Lifetime movies, I'm a big fan because they provide that for me. It's kind of my escape into a simpler, nicer, gentler energy. Do you find that in Lifetime movies in general, it continues to be that way, or they're starting to switch away from it?
Well, I feel like maybe in the Christmas movies that I do, for sure. But in regards to, so for the Christmas movies, yes, it's
Yeah.
taking place in a small town, focused on romance. I just did one that's focused on saving a wedding. Those, yes, those are a joy. Now, but Lifetime also is about drama and peril too. So I wouldn't mind doing a little bit more of the Hallmarky type of Lifetime movies, which in those simpler times where the boy meets the girl and fall in love, and or even the villain is transformed into a nicer person. Those are fun, and especially with the drama that the world is going through. Just having done this wedding movie was really fun to get away from the drama of real life right now. But yeah, for me though, a lot of my, unless it's a Christmas movie, so many of my Lifetime movies have been women in peril, mother dealing with a daughter who's in trouble, mother dealing with a daughter who's passed away. So I would like to see more of a turn towards I'd like to, for my own sanity, be playing more of the happier women, because it's hard to let that go when you live in a character for like 9 days straight, and then kind of that anger it becomes a part of your body, and then you have to kind of let that go. And I don't drink alcohol anymore, so I don't have like that release I used to have. So I'd like to get back to some fun comedy, like to bring a little comedy back into my life soon.
Yeah, and let's actually dive into that. So first of all, what do you do now to get that out of your body? And congratulations, I think it's your 7.5 years or so.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. You've definitely done your work. Yeah, I'm 7.5 years sober. Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What now to get that drama out of your body?
Right now, I'm honestly it was such a this last Lifetime movie that I did was so challenging to do with such a quick pace, and to do with the restrictions that we're looking at for COVID, and trying to adjust to our new normal. Like a pace of a Lifetime movie is so fast to begin with, but then you add the restrictions to it, and which I'm all for. I mean, we have to be safe, but you add that element of, usually I'm just playing the fear. Now there's a certain level in our daily lives of every time you walk out of your house, there's a little level of risk and fear involved. So for me, I am just taking time to put myself back into quarantine. I couldn't do that for 9 days. Literally, it was if I could get home, lock my door, feed my cat, and get in bed, then that was my release. But now I'm really slowing down. I would like to get to a point where I am really getting to read projects, because I was so back to back with projects. I'd like to get to a point where I really decide where my vision is for my next project, instead of like each one comes to me, okay, I'm so glad to be working, yes. So I'm just gonna put my own self on quarantine for a minute and just go, okay, you left quarantine a little bit early because it's amazing that you're working. Now let's go back to like having a little bit of the rest, a little rest that the rest of the world is have. Like get that character out, and let's kind of envision what this next role should look like, and how that's where I am. I guess I'm forcing myself to have my own little vacation because I was so back to back on the roles. Now it's going to be in my own condo, but I'm going to have a little vacation right here with my glass of water and community pool and hot tub, I guess.
No, that's perfect. In order to kind of this idea of getting things out of your body after being in the character, it kind of delves into your acting approach. For some people, what they do is they're just themselves. Other people are completely out of their own body and they're into another character. And then some people, or I think most people probably are somewhere in the middle. And everybody has their different options. So where do you find yourself in that, three bucket spectrum?
I always think of like I'm kind of a cafeteria style of acting. Like I've studied so many different techniques, and
Right.
that on any given day, like I'm using what works for me on that day. But I definitely feel like for that moment, I'm right there in that character.
Mm-hmm.
And then I forget how much that like lives in you, like what type of a muscle memory that we have sometimes. So it's easy for the like pleasant and sweet roles, because then you feel pleasant and sweet. But this last Lifetime movie that I just completed, I was playing like a real villain, like a real villain, not just like the antagonist, but a villain. And I noticed like combination of my body just being exhausted. I was driving into set like a few days in, and all of that like rage was still kind of like right on the surface for me. And it was definitely like I was dropping into that character so fast and so easy, because I really felt like the pace, I hadn't done anything to like go back and get back to myself. There were some nights that I did, even as exhausted as I was, that I would, I don't have that glass of wine, so I just go as exhausted as well. I sit in the hot tub, and I'd figure out, I'd get back to for a moment Meredith. And but I definitely, when you're living like kind of dark parts of yourself through these characters, you definitely need to find a way to remind it, like, that's not me, that's not where I live. I'm not saying I'm about to go, have road rage on someone, but I'm feeling that all those things are still in my muscle memory from the night before, because I didn't do any type of releasing and go, okay, done. Close that chapter. Yeah. Set is closed for 12 hours, and you will go back, go pet your cat, have a cup of hot cocoa, or sit in your hot tub, remember who you really are, because the body's amazing with what it remembers, right? Like I could find I'm sure that I could find a monologue, and 2 words in, my body would remember that feeling of saying those words. It's like so. It's amazing when we talk about those muscles and how readily, if you're open to it, how available they can be, like that.
Yeah. You're a very spiritual person as well, from what I read and kind of listened to some of the interviews you've done. So, maybe meditation, maybe some other things will work for you. For me, it's watching musicals, and that's kind of my happy place and my vibration raising mechanism. I go to Sing in the Rain, or I go to a movie of that energy. And 20 minutes into it, I'm gone. I kind of released everything else, and then okay, this is me. I know who I am. So.
Yeah, I think I need to do that. Listen to a little James Taylor. Bring myself, because I'm. That's so funny that you say that, because like towards one of the last days on this last movie, one of the producers and he just started singing from Les Mis, and I just jumped right in. Yeah. And it was one of the more I felt more like, do you hear the people sing? But we were singing, Fall of Rain. I was like, okay, that's a little bit better. But my whole character was more like singing the songs of angry men. But yeah, I love that. I grew up doing musical theater, so I feel you there. That's awesome.
Yeah, use it, use it. It works for me.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting that you come from comedy and you've done so much comedy, and I want to dive into improv shortly because that's my background as well. And you get to play various characters, so there's a lot to your career and 144 IMDb credits, but you do a lot of drama. And I find that ironic for a lot of us that come from comedies that we want to do comedy. We're happy, silly people, and yet we get to ask to be doing a lot of drama. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And that gets into types, which we'll talk about in a second. But
Yeah.
have you figured out why kind of you're doing a lot of drama?
Why? Let's see. I think that, I think there's a part of it that goes back to that old quote that I'll probably butcher right now, is dying is easy, comedy is hard. So I think once you there's a surrender, I think, to really good comedy, that you just, it's kind of I had a stand-up teacher, I love this, that said comedy, stand-up comedy is like a yes and with the audience, but there's kind of being that present, that you know the energy of the audience, that you can take it in one direction on this night and then take it in a different direction based on the feeling the audience is giving you the next night. And so I think that comedy is really hard. And so the only thing I can say is that maybe once there's my laundry.
No worries.
I usually don't even have that buzzer on, but I'm like so out of it, I was afraid I'd forget it in there. But the other thing, if we would probably be like all of us, as much as I think we learn comedy to cope to a certain degree. I can't speak for your childhood and where you came from, but I think that there's a certain coping mechanism to comedy. We read people, we know that there's going to be a release of tension. If we say this exactly like this in this moment, we're going to get that person to laugh or calm down, and we're going to break the tension in that moment. And I think for me, that was a little bit, I remember being a bit of a storyteller, and I remember my parents don't believe me, but I can remember I would do things just to make them laugh. They would call me malaprop Meredith, because I would say, and they thought that I did it accidentally, but I would do it on purpose. Like I would say, my steak is too tough, I need a segregated knife. And I'd say, and they still don't believe that I knew what I was doing when I would say that, because I knew I would make them laugh at the dinner table. So I would do those kind of things on purpose, mispronounce things, and sometimes I certainly say one time I was telling this very story, and I illustrated my own point by calling myself Misanthrope Meredith. And then the whole story made no sense. So I illustrated my whole point accidentally. But I think that, so the comedy comes from a little bit from that you learn those that yes and in your childhood, how to make people laugh. But the sad reality is, for so many artists, some of that the drama, the love of the drama, the highs and lows that we get, that usually got into for most of creative people, that usually got into our body as a child too. So I'm used to that level of chaos. So now if I can keep it on set and get paid for it, and when we call cut, keep it out of my car ride the next morning, then we're doing okay. If we can keep it on the tapestry, if we can keep it on the, keep painting and keep it on the, what am I trying to say? You know, the canvas. That's what I'm trying to say. If we can keep that drama on the canvas and then walk away, then hopefully we're heading towards a successful life and a successful career, right?
Yeah, it's true, and you're absolutely right. Thinking back to my childhood, it was a coping mechanism. Comedy was a way in for me because I was the nerdy kid who was not popular, and comedy was kind of my way in, and getting to get some people to like me. And I remember staying up nights and being very lonely, and I was melancholy. A lot of my poetry came from around those days, so there was a lot of that kind of drama and introspection. When people right now think of me as this extrovert, I'm saying not really. I mean, I'm extroverted, and I love kind of doing that to a point. But I'm very much an introvert, and I'm very sensitive, and it's kind of that complexity that maybe people see and they sense and they say, yeah, we want you for drama, even though there's a part of me that wants to do a lot more comedy.
Right, yeah. There's that. I did a lot of, early in my career, I did a lot of essence work with this amazing teacher who passed away a couple of years ago, but his name was Sam Christensen, and he had studied he studied the studio system and how studios created stars, where they pluck you out and say, okay, you're the sweater girl, and this is what you wear, and this is who you date, and we're going to put you up in this little, cottage on the lot, and this is going to be, we're going to create you. And he had done all this study of that, and then he taught basically how we could do that for ourselves. And the crazy thing is, when I was in my 20s, like, all the things that had shaped me, that had made me interesting when that camera rolled, right? All those things I was kind of embarrassed of or ashamed of, and I thought I was covering them. So I thought I didn't think I could have that dark side of the lonely child and still be the cheerful, like, still have be the person that has the happy gene too. Like, I didn't know I could be both. So I was trying to cover that darkness, all that darkness that made me so interesting, with this happy, I'm in LA now and I'm going to create this life, and I was a baby, so I didn't think that darkness anyone wanted to see. And when I did this essence work with Sam, I found out that every essence I had that dark and light, and I wasn't hiding anything. And the camera sees all of that. It sees. And so I think, and that may be the other reason, like, if we're talking about, where we came from and what brought us to be actors, is that all those things where we just want to transcend the lonely child that we were, and the the girl that felt, it's interesting to say, blonde, white, female feels so different, but when you spend 7 years in Alaska being the different person, being the person that sticks out like a sore thumb, then I've carried that with me. So there's that. So I think, I understand why, yes, we want to be kind of the people that maybe we've stepped into as adults, but that essence is still gorgeous, and what makes us so interesting when the cameras roll, seeing that part of you. So I think, yeah, if we can tell the truth and bring that, like, still bring that, we can be so many colors. I can still be that lonely girl that felt like she had to play alone and conquer the whole world, and be a woman that's a cheery housewife. Like, if I can do that. And then sometimes the camera still sees, like, I feel like I don't work as much commercially. I don't play the warm fuzzy mothers pretty much. I play the career-driven mothers, the mothers that are like on the verge, they're on the verge of a nervous breakdown because for whatever reason they've lost something. And so you can still work in commercials, but as long as I know those are the women I play the woman that's going to give you frozen pizza because I want to go out and have some white wine with my girlfriends. You know what I mean? So you can still work like crazy as long as you're kind of like, okay, I'm not the warm fuzzy mom. That's just not who I am going to be, because the camera sees the truth to a certain degree. And in my core, there's still that kid in the sandbox.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's true, and your words kind of ring out what one of the casting directors who I've taken some workshops from and who was on the show. Her name is Kathy Rankin, and
Kathy.
Yeah.
Oh
Kathy
my gosh,
Rankin.
I studied with Kathy at TVI Actors Studio where I worked for years.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, she's
I know
great.
Kathy.
Yeah, she didn't let me get away with any of my crap. She saw right through it, and she said, "Nope, not liking it." So I had to really do a lot of soul searching and changing. Thank God for that, because that opened me up substantially. But she keeps on talking about, light and dark qualities, and you can't just come in and be light or be dark. You have to be this combination. So, when you mentioned that, I immediately heard her voice in the back of my head. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. We have Kathy in common.
Yeah, we have Gerald in common. We'll talk about
Oh my,
Gerald.
yes. Oh yeah. I actually, I was gonna go back. I was gonna go back and watch his. Now I'm gonna go back and watch it. I didn't want to. I watched somebody who I didn't know a little bit just to get a sense of your style. But I got to go back and watch Gerald.
And you keep scrolling down, Kathy. Kathy is going to be there as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Kathy was going to be my first guest on the show because, again, to me, she's very influential in what happened in my acting kind of arc of going from a person who I thought I was, and then after meeting her, changing the path and discovering myself and discovering Meisner, thank God, because now I can get out of my head and I can just focus, not on the interview, but I can focus on your eyes.
Right.
Let's buy it. So. Yeah, Kathy was going to be my first guest, but the timing didn't work out, so she came on a little bit later. Yeah, it's very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you bring on a couple of things that I wanted to touch upon, which is types, right? So I know in your career, your types have evolved. What how quickly did you discover what they were typing you as, and how did that progress for you?
I think I was lucky that because of Sam Christensen's, the work I did with Sam Christensen, I discovered it really early on. Now, did I embrace it and really own it? No. Yeah. I was, so it was actually shocking to me. It was like therapeutic, but not necessarily in the good way at first, to see that all of the things that I thought I had done a good job disguising, the sadness, the anger, the loneliness, all of those things that I found, all those emotions that I found as a woman. And I don't think it's just women but I had acting coaches that had said, oh, you're ugly when you cry, or like all those things that I had thought were that I should hide, and especially because I was so young. Yeah. And nobody, I think you don't appreciate the things that I can speak for me. I didn't appreciate all the cool things that make me different at that point. I wanted to be the same. And when I started in this business, it was very, they called it P&G, like Procter and Gamble or Peaches and Cream. And that's what was selling. Like I was on the tail end of that, but commercially, that's what was selling. Christy Brinkley and Fresh Face. And the fact that I had this dichotomy of I looked like the fresh face, New England girl or wealthy, girl, but I didn't, but I felt like, hey, I'm more than that, but I also don't want you to see that. So it took me a while, and I had a lot of amazing mentors in this business who were about 15, 20 years older than I was when I started. And they would say things like, you're going to come into your own. It's going to take a little longer. And you don't want to hear that when you're in your 20s. And I would even have, he actually just recently passed away, huge commercial casting director named Danny Goldman. And he had me on camera one day and he goes, come and look at this. Like, you can't tell how old you are. Like, I had, for whatever reason, my bone structure, so I'm young, but he's like, you can't really tell. I don't know where to put you. And so a lot of the women who were working actresses were saying, you're going to come into your own when you're older. And like I said, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to work then.
Yeah.
But that, a lot of, I think once I stopped fighting that you can play bougie and not be bougie, like that, all those things that people assume because of the essence you give off, stop trying to prove them wrong. Just take the money and run. Yeah. So stop. You can be a bougie character. You can be a bitchy character and still not be that in real life, or be that at times and own that and stop trying to hide that part of you. So it definitely took getting older, and it took stop trying to fit into everyone's mold. Stop that theater actor mentality that we have where we are like, we can do everything. Yes, maybe, but maybe not. I'm terrible at accents. I don't want to do them. I live in Los Angeles. You can find on any given day an actor better than I am who can do British or Australian. You know what I mean? So I don't, like, I'm not good at Shakespeare. I'm just not. And let someone who does that well do that, and stop trying to fit there and know, but I do this as good as or better than anyone. And so it was a lot of growing up to accept that not every role is going to be right for you. And sometimes a role is just so yours, and sometimes it just isn't. And you can have the best technique in the world, and you can do all the prep, and there's going to be someone that just slides into that role because it's so close to who they are that's just how it is. So it was a lot of growing up and stop fighting and stop almost begging, for like to be seen, because there was so many years that I just wanted to be in the game, and I was hardest worker that I knew. And that level of surrender and going, this just isn't yours. This one just isn't yours. And there will be more opportunities. And that's when everything kind of changed, is
when you let go.
Yeah. And just go, okay, yeah, this is what, or I'll look at something, I'm like, oh, come on, this is what I do. Yes. I fought for roles that I didn't realize I already pretty much had, and I'm like, oh, I got to play this. And I find out later, oh no, they requested you. And I thought, well, why did you make me go through the audition then? If they told, and they're like, well, I'm thinking, I get it, because the casting directors want to keep their job. So they got to, put me on tape and show. But I'm like, do you know how many hoops I jumped through and how many things I had to rearrange to come to your office and try to nail that role, not having any idea that the producers had already said Meredith Thomas?
That's reality of our business. But
yeah.
There's, again, and you mentioned type, and you mentioned how large LA is and how many people kind of look alike. And when I was looking at your photos, and when I was doing some prep, there were a few actresses that came to mind, and I wanted to ask you if looking similar to others was a help or a hindrance, or it didn't have an effect. So the two names that came to mind almost immediately was Joey Adams and Malin Eckerman. So those were the two. Has that come up before? I'm sure I'm not the first one who brings it up.
Wait, so yes, so Joey Adams, I always thought it was more my, like, I was like, oh, it's my voice, right? But yes, so that's come up a lot. Yes, yes, yes. But who's the other one? I can
Malin
look that
Eckerman. Malin Eckerman.
spell that.
Malin Akerman, Eckerman. So
I've never heard that.
okay. It's in the smile. It's in the smile. All
Okay.
the three of you, for me, it's in the smile. So I understand the voice in terms of Joey, but it's in the smile. It's in the smile. It's in the lips. It's for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never. You know who she looks like to me is that that country singer that was married to Blake.
Blake Shelton.
Yeah, it does Miranda Lambert. She kind of,
Yeah.
maybe it's just this one picture. She looks a little like Miranda Lambert.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna actually look. I'm gonna look at her work because I'm sure I've seen her, but the name was not familiar to me. I'm sure I've seen her in 1,000 things.
One of my God-given talents, which I know I have, and many people criticize me for, is the fact that I know when somebody looks like somebody, and I know when somebody sounds like somebody. I just Timothy Davis, who's wonderful, and I love him in billions. He was on the show, and I was talking to Tim, and I'm like, I know your voice, I know your voice, I know your voice, and towards kind of the middle of the show, I'm like, you sound like George Clooney. You have almost identical tone to George. And he's like, yeah, I heard that before. So it's one of my things.
That's interesting. Well, I think like the friends that I have that I'm like, you should be in casting, like, you know, because there's certain people that's a gift that you can just, I'm more of a face person. Like I will remember, I'll forget your name, but I'll remember the incident that I saw, like I'll remember where I was talking to you. Like I will, that I can, and I'll place it, like it's odd, but then I'll totally have your name wrong, but I'll be like, I remember I saw you there. It was this audition, da 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 da. This was happening around us. Like I back to that scene, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool. Again, it's all of us have all the little different quirks, but that's one that I've always had. And I don't know if it's the energy and the essence of the person where, you know, you capture it and you're like, that's it. There's again, I do that with my friends all the time, and you know, sometimes they believe me, other times they don't, but most of the time they look at it like, yeah, I see it. I just have to, you know, find the right picture for them to understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, you know, having some resemblance to others, have you found that it's been helpful, or was it a hindrance, or it doesn't matter?
I don't think for me, I don't think it's mattered. Like and if it has, I don't know about it. Like you always hear those stories where like, oh, she didn't get it because she looked like his ex-wife, or, you know, I didn't like the sound of her voice, or, you know, but I don't think it has. I feel like if anything, I'm always like, well, does it not work that I'm a blonde? You know, like, did it go to the brunette? Or, you know, did it go to someone that older, younger? Like, I don't think, I don't know if they say, hey, maybe it has, maybe they've said, I want a Joey Lawrence Adams or whatever type. And I think more than that, people have mistaken me. Do you know Meredith Monroe, the actress? She's now you're gonna send you to your phone. So not only do I look like her, I mean, and she's been on more series, like and we're probably right around the same age. And then Meredith Thomas, Meredith Monroe, and I happen to love Marilyn Monroe, so it was like I've been mistaken for her. I swear I've been called in for jobs where they wanted her, maybe even book jobs where they wanted her, because another blonde Meredith, you know, with a very you know, European sounding name.
Um,
So
I'll definitely look that up after the show. I'll let you
yeah,
know.
check out Meredith Monroe.
Okay. I'm glad that I have not heard of her, because that part of me says, hey, I know who people look like, and now I don't know who you've been recognized for. I just don't know Meredith.
Yeah, I think it's more like the name and that we're blonde. Like,
Okay.
like that's probably, I don't know if we look alike, but it's the name and that we're both blonde. So
Very cool. Well, yeah, me and Woody Allen will not have that problem. I have the first name, he has the last name. The fact that we're both Jewish, I think that's
that's
really.
where it ends.
Um,
You
so
have no plans to marry your stepdaughter anytime soon.
no, I actually don't have any plans on having a stepdaughter unless my wife has enough of me and says that's it. All the bring you into my life, get out.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
could happen, but no, I certainly do not plan on doing that. Um, he's a genius, but yeah, that part of his
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
there's a lot of geniuses that are, like that it stops at genius. Like that's where let's not discuss anymore.
Sometimes I wonder is, because in order for somebody to be incredibly successful at something, that means that they really just focus on that and everything else kind of falls by the wayside. So I wonder if, our ability to be well-rounded and quote unquote normal people precludes us from having the genius because we choose not to only focus on one thing and make it our life's mission. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that like I had another teacher, amazing teacher, Stuart K. Robinson, and he was like, you kind of have, he said to me, you kind of like got the the Steve Martin thing. Like you have, you can do this and you have a lot of things that you can do. And I mean, I think that's good and bad, because then like people are always like, well, why don't you do voiceover? I'm like, well, I don't have time to like commit to all of that too, and to this, and to trying to, do if somebody, it's too much. I don't want to, but then you also you don't want to be a jack of all trades, master of none either. But you definitely have to find some sort of a balance. And that has definitely been hard for me, being that I just like working and I like the hard work. I like being busy. But I had an ex-boyfriend say, and you hear this a lot, it's cliched, but, say to me years ago, you don't need to play harder, you need to play smarter. And I'm constantly trying to remind myself of that, because I guess somehow I decided that hard work, I had to prove myself, and it had to be hard to be worth it. And I think as you get older, you're like, life is hard enough. You don't have to make it any harder. Like it can't. And I struggled so much and worked so hard in my 20s and 30s, and lack of sleep and everything I did. Like, when do I get to slow down and just reap the benefits of the hard work? I'm still trying to find that balance.
Yeah, and again, looking at your resume, looking at all the credits, looking at the type of work that you've done, on TV, you've done the co-star, you've done the guest star, you've done recurring, you've done TV movies, which we'll get into in a second. On the film side, you've done shorts, you've done indies, you've done features. You're still doing short films, which I find remarkable and awesome all at the same time. Your resume doesn't show any fear or favor. It's just you're doing all of these projects. And my question was, is that kind of the byproduct of being a working actor? And let's add commercials to that because you've done a ton of commercials. So
Yeah.
is it a byproduct of being a working actor, or is that's just who you are and you have to do it that way and you continue to work?
I think that it's a little bit of both. Like I think that some of it, is there stuff that I would go back and be like, yeah, didn't really need to do that project. Certainly, hindsight is 2020. Although that phrase will never really work again after this year. But like that sadly this year has destroyed that phrase. But hindsight is 2020. Like if I knew what it was going to turn out like, would I remove that one from my resume? Yeah, probably. Would I? So I think, yes, I think that there used to be a time that you could just, you're a television actor, you're a soap actor, you're a voiceover artist, you're a commercial actor. And that with the Wild West and with all the platforms that's kind of gone out, that's gone away. And so I have, if it's a short that I love, I want to do it, like and often it'll be, and it's a director that I'm like, oh yeah, I want it. Like some of my most fulfilling, I've had some major, like challenging roles in a short where either it's a dark comedy or it's a really lovely slice of life where I slip on like a different kind of and I work with a director that I'll say, hey, no, that whole performance was this particular director really directing me out of my little trick, so my comfortable place. And so I think it's both. It's, yes, being a working actor right now to a certain degree is you get what you get, like you're willing to take and work. So there's that. And then on the flip side, there's that part of me that just is like, doesn't feel alive unless I'm on set. And that's it's not necessarily something that I should be proud of, so I'd like to find where I am going is trying to find that balance of going, you don't need this role for your reel. You've done this role before. It's okay to say no. And that's really hard for me, because when you spend years just wanting to get in the game and then finally you're getting these opportunities to do what you spent years hoping you'd have a chance to do, it's really hard to transition and go, you know what? I don't think I need that. I don't need that for the money. I don't need that for the experience of the role, because I play this role over and over. I don't need that. I've worked with this director before, and so that's why I have all those credits. But like I said, would I give some of those credits back and let somebody else have them so that, and have half of the credits, yeah. I just worked with Eric Roberts on my last film, and it's like, he's a machine. But then I'm like, but he also, is getting more a day than I am, like, so it's, in COVID times, what's the price tag that's you're willing to take to get out of your house and put that mask on and then be the most vulnerable one on set? So I'm kind of honestly reassessing where I'm going to try to take this time to reassess where I want my career to be when we all in the new normal, when we come out of this, however that looks.
Yeah. It's a great thing to do. It's a great time to kind of reassess and decide what you want for that next step. And I know you started doing a lot more producing. One of I love Stacks, which is Gerald's.
Yay!
Which is Gerald's film that you are an associate producer on, and you've done a lot of other producing. How did that come about, and why did you decide to kind of add that to your already busy schedule?
Well, I've told this story a lot. That I remember when I was in my 20s reading about actresses that were already like buying up scripts for when they hit their 40s, so that there would be work for them. Now, of course, that was a different time. Like we have so many platforms now, and the world has started to embrace women getting older and being in lead characters a lot more. Yes, a lot more than when I was starting out in this industry. So that's amazing. But how much of that is a byproduct of actresses being smart in going, I'm not seeing this industry offering what I want, so let me now buy or produce and create what I want for me. So so that was kind of how I fell into it. And I feel like it was later that I knew that was happening, but I was so worried about just getting an acting job that the idea of producing was just so foreign to me. It just, I wouldn't have known where to begin. And so I just started to, one, I realized that I needed to learn from people that had done it before. So that's why I really wanted to work on Gerald's project, because he did that transition. Like, he had transitioned from being a working actor and then working that side, and he, to for the most part, like, self-taught. I mean, yes, he had people that went before him and he learned, but so then I was like, so I just was like, I want to be on board for this. I want to learn this, and let me bring what I can help you with, and you bring what you can help me with to the table, and let's see if we can do that. So that was, so as of right now, I've been smart in that I attach myself to great projects, I think. And then I go, hey, let me see what I can bring to the table as a producer, because I really love this project. Starting fresh is where, from like, where I don't have the producers already, producers above me, that's been the harder part, because just accepting that I don't know how to do it yet. Yeah, I really want, and that's why I wanted to work with Gerald. It's like, okay, teach me how this is done, that how you can be an actor and transition. And honestly, Gerald's project is the first one that I really did that I'm not attached. Well, I mean, there's a couple of others, but one of the first ones that I'm not attached in any way as an actor.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yep. Yeah, Gerald is great. I really like talking to people who not only have the drive and the interest in making something of themselves, but doesn't take it to the extreme of the ego element. And he's just a really good human being who is this incredibly talented and accomplished person. I really enjoyed speaking with him. So.
Yeah, he's we've been lucky enough to have met when we were both starting, when we were acting, you know what I mean? So I've been able to like watch his, like, I remember the whole, watching that whole thing happen, and I'm like, and then and luckily I've been kind of going along for the ride, like, he's in so many, and I told him that the other day, I was like, I just, I know you don't want to or need to hear this, but so many opportunities have come. Yeah, now once he opened the door, I had to prove myself. Sure. And then, but so many things have come because of that first door getting opened, and then them going, because and then them going, oh yeah, we've heard of her. Now she's, now she does Christmas movies and Lifetime movies, and so that's why they say, be nice to the assistants and the associates, and be nice to your fellow people, because you don't know where they are going to be sooner than later. I mean, that's not the reason, obviously. Be nice and kind anyway, but don't treat the people beginning their career different than you're going to treat the people that are already where they want to be. It's like dating, I love this. I read this years ago, or somebody's grandmother had said, or mother had said to her, treat the men that you like the same way, that you like and want to date the same way, the ones that you don't. You should treat, like, it should be equal. Like, the men that you like should get no more kindness than the men that you don't necessarily, like, treat people the same. If you give all of your attention and kind of to the one that you like, you're going to miss. And if I'd done that, like, all my attention to how I thought my career should look, I would have missed this whole TV movie genre that that wasn't on my vision board. But I'm not asking anyone to take it away.
It's definitely on mine. When people are surprised by my answer of when they ask me what I want to do as an actor, I say Hallmark movies. I love that energy. That's me. Just put me in those movies. I'm good. So that's kind of.
You should write yourself one.
I should, and I am a writer, so I should
Yeah.
write myself one. But I started this project, and this project now is basically a full-time job that doesn't pay anything. So it's another thing that I have to juggle, but I love it, so I'm gonna continue to see where it goes. So I have again a lot more questions for you, but I know that our time is kind of running short. So why don't we get to our actors lightning round, and you're very welcome to come back again, and so I can ask you more of these 2 pages of questions that I have for you.
Wow. I know. As my aunt would say, she's a talker. Like, yeah. So I didn't throw off all your preparation with all my yakking.
No, I'm fascinated, and again, we had a chance to go off script, which is what I really want to do. These questions, and by the way, kind of when I show them to people, it's not because I'm going to ask question 1 and I'm going to finish here. It's really not. It's so I remember that I wanted to ask these questions, and it's a flow. So I have an energy of where things are going, and then you mentioned something else, so we bring that, and it all goes. It's more of my note cards of not forgetting something.
Yeah.
In terms of that lightning round that we're trying to get to, you've been on a ton of projects. Now, if you had to pick one favorite and only one, which one?
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Wow. I'm gonna say A Christmas in Vermont because, well, okay, that's my favorite. That I'm gonna modify it because that's my favorite on film experience.
Okay,
so,
that's fair.
Because I have favorite live theater experiences, but I'm gonna say that's my favorite on film because that was kind of classic Hollywood in that. That was the beginning of my television movie career, and it kind of was like my whole career. It was a whirlwind. I had to get to Buffalo, New York, because there was about to be a snowstorm, so things were moved up. So I had to get my life in LA in order, like that, to get to Buffalo. Chevy Chase wasn't involved yet. I had only a couple of scenes. By the end of it, more stuff had been written. Chevy Chase was involved. It just turned, and it's kind of a metaphor for my career. Like I just said yes, and then look at what unfolded. And led to all these other things. So, Christmas in Vermont.
Perfect. One of my questions, it's not in lightning round, but one of the questions I really wanted to talk to you about improv, and as soon as you said yes, and I have to ask it. So my background, the reason why I started the acting is because I was watching Whose Line Is It Anyway, and I said I have to go. I'm in Chicago. I can't not go to Second City, so I went to Second City, and I spent a year plus there. I know you were a Groundlings, and I know you've done a ton of stuff. What's your favorite style of improv? Just to make that into a short question.
I think I don't feel that I'm talented at building characters, like comedic characters. Like I don't feel like I'd ever be a Saturday Night Live, like I just don't. Mine is the yes and throw me something, let me think on my feet, let me yes and with you and see where this goes. So just letting the audience kind of dictate. Okay. And letting the audience and your fellow players dictate how you play this, and that comes in really handy in life and on and in commercial auditions too. Just you'd never know what you're about to get thrown. You don't know who you're going to go in with. You know very little about the script, and just be willing to be in that moment and tell the truth.
Perfect. I love improv.
Yeah.
Who's in terms of acting stuff? So I guess let me preface that. Who's the best actor you've ever had a chance to work with?
Oh, that I've ever had a chance to work with. Well, I guess it would have to be, I'd have to go back to when I was a baby watching people on Pleasantville. So Jeff Daniels and Joan Allen, like watching their process from afar, being like this little actress from New Hampshire that wanted to do this, and then just, um, it was different. Like Jeff Daniels was very to himself and like never, and then I just, yeah, those are the two, like they're real actors. Like they just get in it.
Um, which series or film that's out there right now that you're not a part of that you would have loved to be cast in?
Oh, wow. I think I think just a sitcom, like any, like Mom, maybe, like just like a really, um maybe Mom or Veep.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see you in Veep. Veep would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
Well, we reached out to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, so if she comes on the show, I'll definitely talk to her about it.
Oh, awesome.
What's one thing that most people do not know about you?
Gosh, I talk about so much. Okay. Um, for a minute in my early 20s, I had this crazy notion that I should be bi-coastal. That wasn't the crazy part, but um, the plan of how I would become bi-coastal was that I would work for the airlines, and I didn't want to be a customer service rep, and I didn't want to be a flight attendant. So I actually threw bags for the former America West Airlines at LAX for a very short time, long enough to get one free ticket, which I used to go to New York City and hang out with Prince Albert of Monaco. And then my dad coached me through quitting that job, giving my notice. And it's probably the only time in my life that I really did not succeed at something I set my mind to.
Wow.
I was not good at tossing bags for an airline. I was pretty
Yeah,
terrible, like really terrible, like Saturday Night Live sketch bad. You do not want this girl like bringing in the flight. I mean, yeah, bad.
that's awesome. I love that. I love that. And now we have to pause because you just said something about hanging out with Prince of Monaco. So what's the story there?
So I met, oh gosh, this is, so when I was at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts out here in LA, I met an actress who, well, at the time, I kind of bought the story that maybe she was in some sort of secret relationship with him. I think today we'd call it maybe stalker, but I was like young and had stars in my eyes and didn't.
Yeah.
So, um, we went and showed up at one of his mom's charity, like Prince Grace Foundation charities, and
Yeah.
meanwhile I'm using a free ticket from throwing bags, and we're sleeping a couple of nights on our friend's couch, and then a couple of the night, like one night at the YMCA at Central Park, and we're going to this like charity thing. And then, that led me to follow her to Monaco on like one of her, she's the one that had the idea that I should work for the air, we should work for the airlines, but she never did. Only I did. I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And
Yes.
I was terrible at it. So then we did a trip to Monaco, dead of winter, to hang around with Prince Albert. So I always say those stories are for my memoirs, but so that's how I stayed at the Palace apartment, and Monaco is like the size. Speaking of Central Park, it's like the size of Central Park,
Yeah.
and and it's the dead of winter, and I'm in Monaco, and you can see Monaco in a half a day, and unless you're, looking for a tax shelter or gamble or drink, and I did drink at the time. I drank and went to the discos with, inappropriate older men, but so there's more to that. There's more tales I could tell, but that was my experience with Prince Albert.
Wow. Very And I guess going from there, we may segue into the next question of what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you on a set?
I worked with Gary Busey.
Okay, we can probably stop the story right there, but please go on.
So, and again, I should be careful what I say. Gary is with my my commercial agent, and no, that was one of those things that speaking of like a yes and, you just roll with it, and all of my theater training sorry, not theater training, but probably yes to that too, but all of my improv training came in so well because it was just a complete yes and with Gary Busey, like where he was going with it, it like what he was saying, okay,
let's do it.
Just and then trying to guide him back to the script, is hoping that some of this was going to make it into the movie, and like doing like these huge pages, and just so that was a huge learning experience of like, if you know that the stories of like Gary Busey and how he is to work with, then you go to the set knowing that, and you don't act surprised when things are weird, or things are different. Then so that was that was kind of like, that's a war story for my memoirs. Like, I can handle anything. Like, I can, lines dropped, things happening, yes and to a certain degree. And then you say to yourself, how much am I willing to take before I say no more? I walk off set. So that was kind of it's like, I can handle this, but I can't handle that. So you start to go, yeah, I will do this for the paycheck. I won't do that for the paycheck. Like I will have, there'll be, and that movies that I worked on after that, like Line in the Sand. I'm not going to risk my life on a B movie. Like, this is not how my story ends. Like, I could do this. I won't do that, So that was a crazy, and I could go, and then, gosh, now that I say that, now that I think of it, I've got crazier stories of being on location. And again, if anyone ever wants to read my memoirs, I got some tales to tell.
Please do share. So save one of those for the next time you're going to come on.
Okay.
And as soon as you write your memoir, please come back so we can talk about it and make sure that people buy the book.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, last question as we close this interview out.
Okay.
If you had a chance to talk to a young Meredith who's just starting out, who's on Pleasantville, and you had a chance to give her one piece of acting advice, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. I guess I'd say you have like everything you already have it there. It's all there. So just be willing to access it. Because there's nothing that stops you more than the fear. And I've had that fear where I've jumped into a role and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I really don't think I have this one in me. I can't tell that. I can't be that available. And then for the most part, unless it was just came down to technical issues, issues beyond my control, technical within the set, I feel like I've always brought it. I mean, some might argue like that wasn't the best choice, or you know what I mean, like, yeah. But it's right. It's there if you're open. Like you have it there. Just be open to bringing it and not being afraid of it, because the fear blocks it.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing this with us. I really, really, really enjoyed learning about you and talking to you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a really nice treat to receive the invite.
Yeah. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. We thank you for watching. We know you love acting as much as we do. Take care.